Hello all. I want to share some thoughts on the recent developments, the coming depression that we're facing, not just a recession. We've had a recession in 2020. The difference between the two is one lasts a few months, the recession lasts a few months, and the depression is going to last years. Now, uh, the reason this is going to happen is because the federal government and the reserve banks have run out of options to deal with the hollowing out process of the economy. We've had many companies declaring bankruptcy. There's a cash flow problem. There's high inflation. This is all going to feed into lower productivity of the economy. Um, and there's not much the Fed can do. They can raise interest rates, but that's just going to slow the economy more. The major shock that happened from the pandemic was largely offset by all the cash printed, but now we're going to have to pay for the cost of printing all that cash. With the inflation, the price of everything goes up and the wages don't. Now, here's the correlation between the fossil fuel industry and the green agenda that we've had recently, and how they compare to this depression. So it's actually in the best interest of the renewables agenda to have high fossil fuel prices, high oil prices, high coal prices. It's very beneficial for them. Here's why. Because renewable energy is highly uncompetitive financially when it's compared to coal, gas, and even oil. Um, so they've had to rely heavily on subsidies from the government to remain competitive and enter into the market. For them, it's very beneficial that the fossil fuel prices are high, but it's not really going to save them or help them in establishing the industry of renewables. I'll do another video of why renewables are not economically or practically possible for the purpose that they portray to be, for the purpose of saving climate change and reducing consumption of electricity and just being more efficient, because they're not. Now, I'll go into that in another video, but the depression we're going to face is mainly due to the high commodity prices and the inflation. The high commodity prices are mainly due to the inflation, but coal going from $50 a ton to over 400 is far, far out of reach of what inflation causes. Now, there is the Ukraine war as well, but what happened in Ukraine could have been much offset by if we had not followed blindly in the footsteps of the green agenda. And here's why: because of what of their portrayal of coal and gas being evil for the environment, countries and governments haven't had anything to do, haven't wanted to be associated with those. They've wanted to be in the good books, so they've stopped approving these projects. So we haven't had many approvals for these projects in the last couple of years. So now that we have a severe price increase thanks to the green agenda, we can't really combat or save ourselves from the effects of the Ukraine war leading to these high commodity prices. And that's gonna be a problem, because as we can see now, it's having a drastic effect on the economy. It's it's leading many businesses into insolvency issues and bankruptcies, and this is going to lead to a lot of suffering. Nitrogen is a problem, because nitrogen is gas is used to produce nitrogen, and a lot of these companies that are producing the nitrogen fertilizer, they're not profitable anymore because gas prices have gone through the roof. So if we do not have a fertilizer supply, then the major food producers of the world are not really going to want to produce um, food. The companies, the way our economy works, if it's not profitable, don't do it. Doesn't matter if people are going to be out of food, but don't do it. So this is how the renewable industry has really choked our Western um, societies of precious energy. We should be having more fossil fuel mines, more fossil fuels available, more gas available. We should have more coal mines ready to fill the gap of any inadequacies, but we're not having that. And this is a lot to blame with the renewable industry. and they're very much gonna be contributing to the greatest depression, one of the greatest depressions we're about to enter into, as our government has run out of ways to combat this coming depression. The hollowing out process has already started. Once these companies go out of business, there's going to be less liquidity in the economy. Inflation is going to go up. Things are going to become more expensive, and there's going to be less money circulating because as companies go out of business, that's wages off the table. Those wages could have been used to buy other things. That's income for other businesses off the table. It's a recurring downward spiral, and you know, all because of these companies having to pay really, really high fuel prices. Now you can blame it on Russia, but we wouldn't have this problem if we didn't have the green ideology driving domestic policies that prevent us from doing the necessary approvals for mines. You know, they've made it extremely difficult to approve a new coal mine, a new gas mining. Yes, it's bad for the environment, sure, but you know, is it worth all the suffering that the global economy is going to experience? That millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of people that are going to suffer over the coming years. Is it worth the exchange for all those people, children suffering, just because we think we're saving the environment when in fact renewables do not save the environment. They're actually not any better for the environment, and I'll go over that in the next video. Um, so is the exchange really worth it? What are we really trying to save the climate for? We're trying to save the climate so people have a good place to live. But what about if we starve people in the meantime because agricultural companies are going out of business because of the high commodity prices, the high fossil fuel prices? Is it really worth it? I don't think so. I mean, if children and people are going to be starving to death, look at what's going on in Sri Lanka. People have died because of the protests, because the government, the fuel prices have gone through the roof and the government can't afford it. Is it really worth it now? That's the question you have to ask ourselves. So, the renewable agenda, I think, is going to decline rapidly as this period of struggle approaches. So, we really have to be wise as policymakers and as citizens and business leaders. We have to understand that fossil fuels have really brought our civilization to the great place that it is now. It wasn't renewables, it was fossil fuels that gave us all the luxuries we have now. So we have to, we can't get rid of it because we can clearly see now the suffering that's happening if there's not enough supply of this. These high prices would be fixed if we just had enough supply of fossil fuels, if we had more coal, if we had more gas, if we had more infrastructure to supply the world these needed resources, if there were more ports, more railways, more mines to provide this to the international market, we wouldn't have this problem. But the renewable industry has sabotaged our government and made it increasingly difficult with their propaganda to prevent new mines being opened. And we're gonna have to pay for that. The people, especially the poor, vulnerable people, are gonna have to pay for this. So keep an eye out on global food supplies. The grain market is suffering heavily because of fertilizer shortages. We could largely avoid the effect of what Russia did and their disruption of supply to the global world. If we had enough of our own supply, which we do have, America, Europe, Australia, the Western countries, they have enough minerals in the ground to supply themselves and be net exporters. But because it's of red tape and politics and the internal bickering between people that we can't really progress as a people. That we have to rely on the supplies of countries like Russia because we don't want to be seen as environmentally bad. Don't worry about environmentally bad. Have you seen what Russia is doing, what they do to their people, the invasions that they do, this and that? So, it's really an ugly contest. It's one evil for another. So we need to rethink our policies in the renewable sector, and we need to understand that fossil fuels are not disposable. We cannot get rid of them. They're integral to our society, to our community, and they're integral to our growth and for the comforts that we have in our civilization, that are produced from the exports of oil and gas and coal. Okay, so keep that in mind and peace out.